All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here. Today, we are going to be talking about scaling enterprise demos, and I am very pleased and honored to be joined by Tim Nordvet from Synack. And Tim is going to be talking about how Synack replaced their demo environment with Demostack. So, hello, everyone. What we're going to be talking about today is the Synack story. You'll learn a little bit about their company and where they were. You'll learn about their demo environment and some of the challenges they faced, including when they decided they needed to make the move to look for a demo operations platform. We'll talk in detail about that transition and the challenges and accomplishments. And then we'll end talking about the results. It's been a little over a year and a half since Synack has been running on Demostack, and Tim's going to share how that's going. So let's start it off, Tim. Just learning a little bit about your company. Tell us about Synack.
Absolutely, Dan. First off, just thanks for this opportunity. It's been a great partnership over the last year and a half with Demostack. So excited how we can just work together to continue this partnership. But yeah, before we get into kind of the demo, just so you understand Synack, kind of what we do, where we come from. At our core, we are a SaaS platform approach to penetration testing. So we give organizations an adversarial perspective of their attack surface, but at scale and on demand. With our SaaS platform, our goal is to make the output of the test and as easy as possible for our customers to understand, remediate the vulnerabilities, understand what's actually exploitable from that real world attacker perspective. Kind of what we feel sets us apart in the industry is the best of both worlds approach. On the human side, we combine the creativity, the intelligence, the ingenuity of our global community of researchers. We call it Synack Red Team, but with a powerful software-enabled SaaS platform. So we're combining the human and the machine element. And with that, as opposed to, traditional pen testing, you're not just getting a list of potential issues from a scanner. You're not having to wait, weeks or months to schedule a test or additional weeks and months to get that report. You're getting continuous human-led, intelligence-driven testing that finds vulnerabilities faster and provides actionable results. I like to consider it the human element at a SaaS platform scale.
Nice.
So at Synack, we were founded in 2013. The initial problem that we were built to solve was that traditional pen testing was and often still is broken because it's slow, it's point in time snapshot, and just doesn't keep pace with the modern pace of development. When you think about doing a once a year pen test, that's not really adequate when you have developers that are pushing code on a weekly, sometimes daily
Right.
basis. You need to do it more regularly. So the original problem that we were developed to solve was how can we make high quality pen tests more accessible, faster, and continuous. But that was 13 years ago. The problems only just got more complex and bigger over time. As you look at attack surfaces, now we talk about, cloud infrastructure with serverless architecture, countless APIs, IoT, OT, and now even AI and LLM is in the mix. So we've evolved from being just a better pen test to being a comprehensive offensive security platform. So our customers use us for way more than just pen testing these days. We're helping them with continuous vulnerability discovery, compliance assurance, and we help, C-level and other executive leaders kind of get that executive level overview of their entire risk posture. So it's great business to be in because the need for what we do has never been greater than it is today.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really evolving to a must-have than rather than a nice to have something as sophisticated as Synack in your security stack.
No, absolutely. As we go out and talk to customers, it's interesting because traditionally, pen testing was kind of used as just a compliance check the box activity. But when
Mhm.
you're looking at securing our environment from real world adversaries, pen testing is one of the tools that really gives you the most realistic insight as to what's actually exploitable from the real world perspective. So we saw an opportunity where we can help bridge that gap and how customers can actually use the output of pen testing to reduce their organizational risk.
I love that. I love that. So let's transition into talking a little bit about some of the challenges you had showing that product and telling that story in a compelling way. And I'm wondering specifically because cyber is such a complex, multi-threaded story. What are the demo challenges there? And maybe if you could touch on the technical type challenges as well as the people challenges too. That would be helpful.
No, absolutely. It's just to start with cybersecurity demo at a high level. So I was at a Gartner conference in Washington, D.C. last week, and I was on the exhibitor floor, and there's hundreds and hundreds of vendors. And I was in the villager space of security testing, and there is, 30, 40 plus vendors there that all do security testing. And everyone says, we will secure your attack surface. So when you're talking to a CISO and director, you can't just tell them. It's actually showing them is what builds the trust. So the demos are absolutely critical in cybersecurity because, as I mentioned, when you're talking to that CISO, that security director, you can't just tell them how you're going to secure your assets. You have to show them in order to build that trust.
It's really not unlike the environment that we're in right now in the demo space. There's so many different companies popping up every day. Being able to show really is gets people to understand quickly what your differentiators are.
No, absolutely, 100%. And when you look at cyber a little more, kind of some of the unique challenges that we deal with, we're not dealing with a simple workflow app where you're just transitioning through a pipeline. It's really a complex ecosystem, especially when you look at what Synack does with our SaaS platform, where we're dealing with a variety of different asset types, different vulnerability types. You have analytics, you have different user personas where you have, deep technical workflows for the security analysts, but then you have CISO level dashboards. And why that's, challenging from a demo perspective is because you need to make it realistic and powerful so that they can kind of understand and put themselves in the shoes of a customer.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to a data issue because you need vulnerability reports, asset lists, researcher profiles, etc. But in a cyber environment, you absolutely cannot use real customer data and just kind of do a find and replace sanitization because you run the risk of exposing a live connected environment, which could lead to things we don't want to. So it's a very fine line to walk of how do you create that realistic, believable data, but you then protect all the data that you currently have. So it's something that we've been working through for a while now. So digging a
What
little
type
more,
of environments did you use to show that?
yeah. So before we worked with Demostack, the way we did that was internally. We had
Okay.
a series of just kind of internally hosted staging environments.
Okay.
And the way we solved the demo issue is we had an automated script that would run on a regular basis that would just kind of populate with the data. So, as I mentioned, it's our platform is very powerful, which is a strength. So when we talk about the demo and we show it to the executives, we show it to the analyst, it helps us sell because they see the
Yeah.
power of the Synack platform. But
Right.
then it goes back to that demo complexity. You have to have all this inner working of data working together to be able to show properly. And it just made it very difficult because I'll dig into some of the more specific technical challenges in a minute, but one of the most unique challenges we had, especially from an SA perspective, is that we had this one size fit all demo. Like we had
Mm,
this internally staged environment with this fake data based off a script. So it's kind of, we knew where all the dead bodies were buried. We knew where the ghosts in the closets were. So we had specific clicks that we could click on that we knew were safe.
yeah.
You never wanted to veer off from that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, we had this one narrative, this one path through our demo environment that was kind of the safe path that we used for all of our demos. So what would happen is the CISO would get lost in the technical weeds because we were going too deep for them. But then when you talk to the operational level, it would be too high level for them. So it was really inefficient for everyone. So this one
Like a
size
one
fit all
size fits
demo,
none kind of thing.
yeah. So that one size fit all just was not effective for anybody. And also from a personnel perspective, like it was demos were exclusively owned by the solutions architect team. The account executives, they were intimidated by the environment because they
Sure.
were very concerned they were going to break something, or if someone asked them a question outside of that, standard narrative, they wouldn't know how to navigate. So
Yeah.
they always relied on an SA to do the demos. And talking about beyond that, like marketing, SDRs, and that wasn't even a conversation with our old demo environment. So with our old demo environment, the burden was immense for solutions architects like myself.
Wow.
So some of the specific challenges that we had, obviously there was the maintenance burden.
Hmm.
As an SA, kind of when we looked at what we were doing with our old demo environment, we found we were probably spending on average 20% of our week, which when you look at it, that's one working day on just demo hygiene. Whether it's,
Wow.
resetting data from the previous demo, whether it's cleaning up, whether it's managing user accounts, pulling out the old, bad data. A lot of it was every time we were going to do a demo, we would go in, do kind of the demo before the demo, just make sure everything was working. So
Yeah.
we were spending a lot of time as SAs just on demo hygiene, which means we weren't spending that with customers. There was also the risk of breakage, which I'm sure anyone that's maintained their own demo environment can relate to this, where it's you live in fear of the demo gods. You'd be on a critical call with major prospect, you click a button and an error would pop up, or the data would just be wrong. It completely kills your momentum and more important, your credibility as a product.
Yeah, I think every SA or SE has had at least one of those moments in their career, and I used to be an individual contributor, and that moment where you have to dance a little bit, you have to keep the continuity going. It's really stressful.
No, absolutely. We at Synack, we got very good at dancing because that was a common occurrence for us. And I think the last issue was just resource allocation. I touched on SAs, how this was just a maintenance burden for us, but engineering as well. Like I mentioned how we had this automated script in the background that was populating the data.
Yeah.
Well, every time we released a feature to our platform, that script would have to be updated, and it was pretty complex script. So it often would require two or three iterations before we got it all right. So it was regularly, tickets being open on the back end to fix it. And so there was a lot of engineering time that they were having to spend just stabilizing and fixing our demo environment. Again, that was sunk costs that they weren't spending towards improving our product and helping our customers.
And it's negative friction too, because at least in my experience, R&D have things they'd rather be doing than fixing demo environments, right? And so
Oh,
you're taking
100%.
them away from customer issues or product development. It's a ripple effect.
No, I mean that's the same story. Like that's one of the issues we deal with in pen testing is that, when we do these tests and we go talk to developers, developers don't want to go back and fix their code from yesterday. They want to focus on the new code.
That's right.
But it's the same
That's
thing
right.
with the demo environment. Like they don't want to fix what they deployed yesterday. They just want to work on their next
That's
push,
right.
next release.
So there had to have been like a straw that broke the camel's back on here that really helped you guys decide you needed to make a change.
No, there certainly was. The trigger, it was accumulation of everything I already mentioned, but kind of the pivot point for us was conferences. Imagine being at a major event like a Black Hat or RSA, and you have a huge booth with hundreds of prospects walking in by. I mean, we were constantly living in the fear of demo gods at those events. And we had one instance at a Black Hat where our CEO was sitting with a key executive for a company we were trying to start doing business with. He pulled up the demo and just got the screen of death. Like it was just
Oh my
broken.
God.
So it's not just inconvenient. I mean, it's a lost opportunity. It's brand damage. And at that point, like our CEO was fully bought in. Like maybe we should start looking at other solutions. Like this just, we don't want to have this happen again. We need to look at
That
something
makes
else.
sense. That makes sense. So how did you run the evaluation process? How'd you find Demostack?
Yeah, so since the SA team was the kind of the main demo ownership, we were the ones doing it, kind of interacting with the demo. The leadership asked myself and several other SAs to form a tiger team to go out and do this evaluation process. And you can imagine when you get a bunch of SAs together, we looked at anything and everything. We have
Mhm.
numbers of spreadsheets and presentations, and we looked at pretty much every solution out there because our goal is we didn't want to find a company that was going to solve today's problems. We wanted
Yeah,
a company that was going to solve today's problems, but we could grow with and solve the problems we weren't even aware of yet. So, and we definitely found that in Demostack.
nice. Before we get into some of the specifics of why Demostack, did you run into even in your SA team any sort of change management challenges, mindset pushback, people not wanting to change the way that they were used to doing things today?
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Because when myself and the leaders on the team, when we looked at this, we saw it as an opportunity not just to fix a technical problem, but let's look more holistically. It would have been easy just to find a new company to come in there and give us a stable demo environment. That's kind of the easy problem to fix. But we really took it as an opportunity of, are we using demos in the most effective strategy possible? Like, is there a better way to do demos? Like, as we look at our sales process, I'll dig into this a little more, but when you and I were talking earlier, we had this monolithic kind of just demo point in time event. And we realized that that's not the best way. So we had this mindset shift that we started working with the SAs and the AEs and everyone in the pre-sales process, that we needed to shift from showing features to telling stories.
Mm.
We had to remove this goal of trying to show every single button and every single menu in the platform, make sure we hit every page. Instead, we started asking ourselves these questions, what is the specific problem the customer has, and what 3 or 4 clicks in the platform would solve that problem? It forced us to
Yeah.
get really specific and customer focused.
And it also, I think we can talk more about this, but the flexibility of having what we call a clone-based demo environment is you don't have to tell that story in a linear way, right? You can mix and match different parts of your product, go in any order you want, and really tailor it to who you're talking to.
No, 100% absolutely. That very modular approach.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
let's.
something we had to work through for a while.
Mhm.
Just real quickly, a thought exercise I would take our essays through is I would ask them, kind of think back as your last major purchase, whether it's, a house, a car, something that's, kind of a splurge purchase.
Yeah.
As you think through that process, before you ever talk to a salesperson, how much research did you do? You know, you search the internet, you talk to friends, you read reviews. It's probably pretty safe to say that before you ever talk to a salesperson, you either had already decided you were going to purchase, or you're pretty narrowed down on what you were going to do. And that when you actually went and talked to that salesperson, did they actually sell you? Was there anything in the product, any feature they showed you that solidified the sale in your mind? And majority of the time, the answer was no. So my follow-up question was always, if the answer is no, then why do you think showing them that one feature in the platform is going to close the sale? Like, if
Right.
we're not solving problems, then we're demoing wrong.
It's such a fundamental thing in sales that, yeah, everybody forgets. I forget, too. It's, that feeling that it comes down to the features or the capabilities, and you know, all, all products evolve and change and grow, but the differentiator is really the human element. It's the story that you're telling. It's how you take that bucket of capabilities that you have, mix them and match them in a way that's going to speak to the person that's on the other end of that call.
No, absolutely. He's one of my favorite sales trainers, a guy named Dan Pink. He often talks about how in sales, we've moved from an age of a information asymmetry to information symmetry, which means that we're talking to informed and educated buyers these days. And he talks about in the purpose in sales and the purpose of demos for this conversation. The purpose of demo is not to demo a product, it's to show how we can solve our customers' specific problems with our specific solution.
And that engenders trust too. And I forget the guy's name, excuse me, but they ask you answer. He came out with a new book, and the first chapter he's talking about how trust is now the currency in sales, right? More so than ever with AI and the pace of things. It still comes down to people. So let's get into some of the things that you found inside the Demostack platform that were most compelling to help you tell those stories.
No, these kind of 5 bullets, as I talked about how, as our Tiger SA team, we looked at all the options out there. And these are kind of 5 things that, was our strategy of what we wanted to do with demos, and Demo Stack aligned perfectly with all of these. Predictability and scalability, first and foremost, our goal is we needed a pixel perfect, high fidelity clone of our platform that was completely sandboxed. We needed to be image, not a live system that had any back end dependencies, because that would mean no breakage, no security risk. We just wanted it to work every time, no questions asked. And in our, 18 plus months as a partnership, we've never had a demo issue. We just pull it up, it works every time.
That makes me feel so good to hear. That's awesome.
In modularity, we've already touched this a few times. Like with our previous demo environment, we had this known click path that you really didn't want to veer off from, but we needed to transition to this modular approach so we could have specific demos for specific purposes. And Demostack and the way the clones are captured, the assets are built, perfectly supports that. We can create different tours, different demos for different personas, different use cases. It really allows us to unlock that storytelling strategy. Security, as I mentioned, just with all the tools and everything built in, the fact that it's based off of a sandbox, not a live system, there's zero concerns, issues on a security side. Fast iteration, where, and this is probably every industry, but cyber especially, we are evolving our product very fast.
Oh yeah.
It's the Synack that I work for, I've been with Synack 3.5 years, and the Synack I work for today is night and day different from when I started, 3.5 years ago. And we're pushing new updates, new products, new, testing strategies, new dashboards on a monthly and weekly basis sometimes. So we need a demo to keep pace with that. Because when we were doing it internally, we were always 1 to 2 steps behind what was actually in production. And Demostack, just with the way it's managed, the tools that are available at our fingertips, I'll touch base on this metric a little later, but we can literally within, less than, 1 business day, in a matter of hours, we can have a new tour, a new demo ready as we release those features. So our demo is always in line with what's production.
Wow,
And
fantastic.
lastly, empowering AEs kind of, and beyond AEs, I probably say enabling the non-technical users. This was huge for us because with our previous environment, as I mentioned, it was kind of SAs and SAs alone manage the demo process. But with DemoStack, it is literally it's foolproof. Anyone can click a button, just kind of walk through, and it just works. And so an SA, the dependency for a demo is not on an SA anymore. So AEs can kind of jump in there. We even have, our customer success team using, enablement for new customers. They will lead demos, and it's opened up the ability for a lot larger subset of users to do the demos beyond just SAs. So it's allows us to scale without having to scale the SA team.
Oh yeah, and that's critical because I say we as an SA because that's my spirit home in an organization still. Always a bottleneck. There's never enough of us. There's always too much demand, and it's not just coming from AEs, it's coming from product marketing and services. So that's huge. And then something else you mentioned, the fast iteration. It's actually an objection we get sometimes that people are concerned that it's going to be time consuming to create new demo assets as their product evolves. But it sounds like that hasn't been an issue for you, or you've been able to enable yourselves to get to the point where you're so comfortable with the tools that it's very quick.
It's a matter of familiarity and comfort, but it's also just the editing features that DemoStack is built into it. Probably my favorite is import edits. Because when I spend a bunch of time, building all these edits into one clone, when I go to create the next clone, I can click a button and it pulls in all the edits I want. So I don't have to go back and redo edits every single time. So the editing capabilities of DemoStack has just exponentially scaled my time.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk more about some of those results that you guys are experiencing.
Yeah, so we kind of already touched on this, but we before demo stack, if you looked at the demos kind of this monolithic point in time in events.
Yep.
The inbounds would come in, we would start off with our initial qualification calls, then a series of discovery calls, all leading up to the demo call, where we would set aside an hour, spend 45, minutes or so, go through the complete overview, and that just really wasn't as effective as it could have been. So one of the biggest results is we've transitioned to these, 10 to 15, oftentimes even less than that, mini demos that are a thread throughout the entire conversation, all the way up from initial qualification calls to post sales. And this impact was immediate. It allowed us to, as we already talked about, we get very specifically focused on the customer's pain point and we demo to that, not, add into the noise with irrelevant features. This allows us to deliver that aha moment that a demo can do literally within the first 10 to 15 minutes of call, which one respects the customer's time. We're not gating the demo. We're not saying, hey, we'll get to that down the road, just hang in with us. So we're
Yeah.
respecting their time, but it also accelerates the conversation. Because as soon as you start setting that hook, it can start moving things faster.
That's fantastic. How do you expose that library of demo assets to the people that are showing them? Do you guys have a library, or are they in some kind of a enablement platform? How do the reps and the SAs access them?
Yeah, so we're talking about the reps. I love my account executives. They're awesome people, but I always joke that I need to make it as simple as possible for them in order for them to utilize it.
Oh yeah, they have a
If
lot
it's
on their
going to take
minds.
them more to 3 to 4 clicks to find something, they're going to give up and move on. So one of the features that we love is that it's called referred to as the deep link feature within Demostack.
Mhm.
So we have an internal sales wiki where we drop those deep links in there so that when an AE needs to demo to a customer, it's just one click takes them right to the exact demo that they need.
Nice.
And so this really supports, that storytelling modular approach. So regardless of, where we are in the funnel, so, for example, if we're top of funnel in the qualification phase, maybe it's an SDR or just an AE initially on that first call, they might hear something from executives saying, you're worried about visibility. So they can quickly just, in 30 seconds or less, find that deep link that's going to help them demonstrate that CISO level dashboard and say, all right, let me share my screen for 90 seconds and show you how we solve that, then jump back to the conversation. Whereas in mid-funnel, that's kind of where the essays do the more deep technical dives. Again, by that point, we already know the specific pain points that we're looking to demo to. So
Yeah.
we can jump in there and find the specific demos we need that are going to speak to those features that solve that problems. And then post call follow up, instead of just, emailing a customer saying, "Hey, thanks for your time, looking forward to the next call," we now have a series of tours where an AE can take that link, embed it in an email of a self-guided tour that kind of reinforces that feature we just discussed. So one, it allows that prospect to relive the demo experience and kind of reinforce that. But then it also allows them to share it with their colleagues who weren't on the call. So what that does, it turns our champion into an internal seller for us. So just exponentially making us more powerful.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. Um, Can you talk a little bit about like bundling demos together? Like if you, I'm assuming on a lot of calls, it's not just one use case or one feature that you're focusing on. How do you bundle them together?
Yeah, again, kind of, back to the initial kind of our old way of doing demos, show everything. We don't want to, I guess so as essays, we like to get really into the technical weeds and we like to show everything and show off our product. But what we've had to do is get hyper focused and not just when we kind of do those bundles and kind of whether it's the during the actual demo live call with the customer leave behinds, we try to limit ourselves to two, maybe three kind of click talk paths. Let's focus on their top 2 to 3 problems that are actually going to solve for them, and then let's focus on how we can solve that. And it's really our goal is not just to we don't want to just solve the problems they initially state. We want to understand what their real business risk is. Because
Nice.
understanding their business risk and how we can address that, that's what's going to close the deal. If they come to us and just say, well, our problem is that pen tests just take too long to get results. Well, understanding, okay, they take too long to get results. I can answer that pretty easily, but what's the problem? Like when it takes too long to get the results, what's the result of that? Like, is it affecting SLAs internally? Is it causing product, release delays? Like, what's the actual business problem behind that? And once we understand that, then we can, find a tour or speak to a specific feature that's going to solve the real business risk.
Nice. Excellent. And then you and I talked about a couple of other benefits and metrics too that I wanted to just hear you share.
Yeah, so the demo build time reduced. Just go back into pre-demo stack times. Like we don't have an hours to this because it was a lot of hours, but we kind of internally looked at, what are we spending? One thing we did track is our demo maintenance from an engineering perspective, because
Okay.
we had to track by tickets and hours, so we knew what we were spending internally just for demo management. And I can tell you over the course of the year prior to partnering with DemoStack, it was greater than the cost of an FTE for us is what we spent internally.
Wow.
So it was pretty significant costs. So it really allowed us to build that business case to, hey, let's find something a better way to do this.
Yeah.
Once we started with Demostack, kind of that first kind of iteration of demos, it roughly we tracked it. It took us about 100 hours to build that first demo. And a
Hmm.
lot of that, it's not because of Demostack, it's because of our own internally imposed issues, whether it's the
Yep.
data creation, what environments are we creating this clone from? We just had some organization on our side that kind of took longer to come back and do the follow-up edits.
Yep.
But through everything we've learned now, like I say, I told you it was under 10 hours. If I said it took 10 hours to build a complete demo, even that's probably over exaggerating. Like if I had to today, based off, all the features, whether it's, I already discussed import edits, the database edit and the data rules, even the AI that's built into it that allows me to make, mass changes using natural language. Within a matter of hours, once a feature is released, I can have a new demo ready for all of our go-to-market team to start, sharing with our prospects.
That is fantastic. Again, it just makes me feel really warm and fuzzy inside to see these results. When you're close to a product, sometimes you see it at this level, but then you zoom out and you see how other people are using it and hear their perspectives, and it's just amazing.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, I want to just talk about the marketing use case and give you a chance to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mentioned kind of when we were doing this evaluation period, we had our problem of today, which was let's fix our technical demo. But we didn't want to just solve the problems of today. We wanted to set ourselves up to how can we utilize our demo for more than just a demo in the future? And one of the aspects that we loved about Demostack was the tours.
Hmm.
So just like a lot of companies, we do account-based marketing and do a lot of reach outs to the different channels and such. And we saw pretty good conversions from customers kind of looking at those campaigns and then coming to our website. But one of the areas we were weak in is once they come to our website, actually lead conversion of someone filling out information, leaving us their information, asking to talk with the representative, get more information. We had very low percentages. And part of that is just that whole concept of gate in the tour. Like we live in this world of information symmetry where customers need to kind of self-educate and we need to give them that experience. So we looked at Demostack and we built out a series of tours that we embedded our website, which kind of, speaks to different use cases, different personas that allow customers to prospects to come to our website, kind of click through self-guided tours, just no gates, no anything. What it allows us to do from a marketing perspective is just set that hook a little deeper.
Yeah,
And we're seeing increased conversion rates of customers actually reaching out. And it's not just increased conversion rates, we're seeing higher quality leads come through because the customers, prospects that take the time to go through that, they're kind of self-qualifying themselves because they
that's
already
right.
have some understanding of what we do.
That's right. And I love the fact that they're ungated. We have the option to gate the tours, but um, by leaving them ungated, you're making it easier for people to see the product. And I'm sure you're able to still see some attribution in terms of where those leads are coming from.
No, absolutely. We see it as an opportunity to use our product as a powerful marketing and sales asset.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was a lot of great information. Really great story. Before we wrap up here, Tim, do you have any parting advice for other companies that either in cyber or in any industry that might be having some of the same challenges and are looking for a novel solution?
Yeah. So if we look over everything that we talked about today, I probably boil it down to these 4 points. First is audit the hidden cost. Look at your go-to-market team. How much time are they spending on, just demo hygiene, demo maintenance? Look at your engineering team. How much time are they spending on, just fixing things and making sure it's
Yeah,
working properly? And honestly, I'm pretty safe to say that most companies, the number will shock you when you realize how much does it actually cost. And it really, just like us, it allows us to build that business case for a
yeah,
change into doing something different. The second there, obsess over your customer story, not your product features. I kind of already talked about this a little bit with moving from that monolithic demo approach to the modular approach. But one of our goals, and I talk about this to our SAs and our AEs all the time, is we regularly need to look at our key personas' top three pain points and build powerful short demos of how you can solve that problem in 5 minutes or less. Because really, when it comes to a demo, less is almost always more.
mm,
So you don't want to add to the noise.
yeah, yeah,
Third, empower your go-to-market team. don't let the demo be the exclusive domain of technical experts. It can be so much more than that. I already talked about how we're using it in marketing. Our customer success team is using it post sales. Our technical account teams are using it to, help onboard customers. So there's a lot of different use cases beyond just demoing your product. So it gives your entire team the tools to show off your product safely and effectively. And then finally, kind of similar along those lines, think of your demo as a flexible asset, not a rigid presentation. If all you're using the demo for is just that point in time demo to a customer, it could be so much more than that. We talk about how it can be embedded in your website. You can put it in an email. You can tailor it within seconds for any conversation. When you do that, it really becomes a massive growth lever for the entire business. So
Wow.
I hope that
Yeah.
was helpful. I just before we wrap up, I just want to thank you, Dan, and thank Demostack for the partnership. Just this partnership we've had over the last year and a half has really accelerated our sales cycle and just allowed us to show value a lot earlier in the process. And like said, it's really freed up our technical teams to really focus a lot more on solving our customers' problem, not having to maintain a legacy demo environment. So we definitely appreciate it.
Wow. Right back at you. We really appreciate you as a amazing client, really, pushing our platform to grow and develop, and being able to share so willingly, all of your successes here. So thank you so much for your time, Tim.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.